Okay, so what's up? My hair is kind of a mess tonight, but I am pretty excited because we are going to go through a kind of a breakdown of my process on a recent shoot with Crosspoint. So, Crosspoint students, yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm happy with the way that this one turned out. So, we're going to take a look at the process and kind of what went through my head as I was putting things together. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, before we go into anything, I am just going to go ahead and play the project, and then we'll go all the way to the beginning and break down all of the steps that go into it.
It all started with just 12 disciples. The disciples invited people into what Jesus was doing, and Jesus did the same thing. And I just have to ask myself, like, am I doing that in my life? Are we doing that? Are we inviting people into what Jesus has to offer? Think about the people in your life, whether it's someone that sits in the lunchroom alone or someone on your soccer team or whatever it might be, that person that God has put on your heart. Are you inviting them into what Jesus is offering? We don't have to be perfect. He's just saying, follow me. It is a story of transformation. Think of the story of the woman at the well. He showed up when she wasn't expecting it, and her life was completely changed. Because that's what happens when people meet Jesus.
All right. So the first thing before we even break down any of the editing, I wanted to look and kind of take you through my process in terms of pre-production. So typically, anytime you're doing something that's a little bit more highly produced, especially with video work, I like to start with a pitch deck. If it's anything smaller, like really small, like if it's being done for social media or something like that, usually you wouldn't necessarily need a pitch deck. But anytime I want something to be slightly heightened or very heightened, the first step for me is usually this. So Squad Showdown was the name of the larger series. The one that we're going to look at is titled When People Meet Jesus, but it's part of this larger series called Squad Showdown. So the idea for this particular video was to kind of play off of the inspiration of like ads like Nike, Adidas, all of these sports ads. And so this was a chance to kind of talk about what I was looking at inspiration wise, some of the colors, in terms of the palette. This is where I could put that. And then I like to put like a little QR code with an example of one or two of the videos or shots that I'll usually start on Pinterest just to brainstorm and look at some frames that I really like. And so I'll put something like that here. In terms of the story, this is where like the pitch deck is a good place to put a log line. So here, a high school student invites their friends to the greatest event ever. What starts with one turns into many. So just kind of giving an overview of what the story would be ideally. Then here I went into a little bit of a scene breakdown. So I actually broke down kind of some of the scenes and gave like a really broad overview. So I have, all of these scenes that kind of break down. There was an idea for a final shot. This actually got changed a bit because when I was building this pitch deck, I realized that there was going to be another shoot for a video. And so this kind of ended up being further down the line on a different project. Once we kind of present this to the team, I was like, okay, so here's my ideas. This is what I see story-wise. They're like, okay, that looks pretty good. Let's roll with it. The next step for me, I like building shot lists because it really helps with the day of shoot, because there's no thinking that I have to do. Because once I'm in, like if I'm also, DP, once I'm in camera mode, once I'm holding a camera, I don't want to have to think about all of the things that I have to do, because I'm thinking about the framing of the shot. I'm thinking about where the actors need to be, and so also having to remember what shots I need just gets really difficult to keep track of. So one of the ways that we can kind of mitigate that and take care of that in the front end is by building out shot lists. And so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to look at that really quick. Don't really need to spend too much time. But so here's an episode. So at the beginning of the video, you saw there was a pastor, kind of like a student pastor that was talking. It was kind of like a podcast style. These are kind of the shots that I was looking for, a medium shot and a medium close-up. We ended up just shooting one and then punching in for a little bit of it. Here is where we get a little bit crazier. These are each of the locations are here where we want to shoot. And then within each of those locations, we have the specific shots that we're looking for. And then just some kind of description of what the shot is. A big thing with this video, a lot of the transitions were thought about in advance. And I think that's also something that's really important. For like a really good video, I really love seeing those beautiful transitions. And sometimes you can think of them the day of and they work out. But for me, it's really, really helpful to know going in, this is what I need, right? Because if I have this opening scene and I have this follow shot, I have that it pans up to the face, back to the phone, and then he sets it down. And then here at the second one, they pick up the phone. And so for me, that was really important to remember, because on the day of, we also didn't shoot this in order. So that's another reason why shot lists can be really important, is because we started all the scenes at like the park, and then we finished all the scenes that were at home. And this coffee shop actually became the porch at the house that we shot at. And so that being said, this soccer scene was like somewhere in the middle of the shoot day. And then we had to think about this first shot. We had this transition between scene 1 and scene 2. It was important to have this in a shot list, because otherwise this transition would be really easy to forget. And this second scene kind of hinged on that little transition there. So it was really important to make sure that was noted. Here's just kind of an extension of a lot of those things. Here's this scene actually got cut. There was this scene with like having the student pastor on like a bench and everyone like running past, and this idea of like papers flying or something, that ended up getting cut, but whatever, it happens. We had a lot going on that day, and this was a scene that, I thought would be kind of funny, but it didn't end up lending itself too importantly to the story. So that was, something that we ended up just nixing the day of. This ending also changed a little bit. No, this is actually pretty much what it was. Instead of being on a dolly, we had it on a tripod, but we had them jump over the tripod, and that was kind of what that final shot was. That was one that was in my head. I was like, I really want that at the end. I think that would look cool. All right, so that's the shot list. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our timeline here in DaVinci. So we had this idea, everyone going from like place to place. We shot this at the end. So this is actually, we put a green screen on their phone, and then we went back and we edited Ethan, that student pastor, in later. And so it starts with this one character, and then eventually like builds into this larger group. And for Squad Showdown, each grade actually has a color. And so if you notice, you can kind of see that each of the students is wearing a different color. They were told to wear one of the different colors that each grade is assigned. And it actually lent itself really well to just coloring at the back end. It looked really nice to have all of the different colors. But so this beginning, this was the one that was shot. This was the second to last. I think this was the second to last scene or vignette that we shot on that first day. The music starts. We had this is actually just like a text message generator. There were a couple things that I tried. I tried building one out in Fusion, which I ended up having to use actually for the socials version, for the vertical version. But this one I actually just got off of a website. So that's what I used there. But kind of what I was talking about earlier about those cuts, right? So we have here, he sets the phone down, and here he has to pick it up. Because this scene here at the field, that was one of the ones we shot earlier in the day. This right here, we kind of just ran around. They were kicking the ball. We ran around with the camera and just kind of moved it. I wanted it to have kind of that movement that I was talking about, that momentum. So I kind of moved the camera around a lot and just kind of jiggled it and kind of followed the ball as much as I could, and then up and down. And this right here actually is one of my favorite transitions, because look at that right there. So this is actually 2 clips. You would never know. And so then she picks it up there. She juggles it. There's another clip. There's another clip. Another shot. Another shot. Another one. Another one. And this one, there was kind of a lot of adding some sound effects for the ball and everything. The stuff that we got the day of was a little rough. And then here's another one. They kick the ball into the camera, and then they have to pull the cup from the camera. So this is another one where it's like thinking ahead. Having that shot list was super helpful because, again, we shot that. This was the very last shoot. The very last shot was this one in front for that day. A couple over the shoulders. He passes that off, and then we zoom in on this Squad Showdown poster. Here's another situation where we had to start on that Squad Showdown poster to make this transition make sense. So then here he is. Fun little thing. I was given like the series breakdown for the whole month. And so there's different stories about when people meet Jesus and they're changed. And so this was one of the kind of nods to one of the weeks they talk about Zacchaeus. And so I was like, okay, I want to put someone under a tree. I was kind of adamant about that. I was like, someone needs to be doing something, whether it's reading or playing a guitar or whatever, it doesn't matter, but it needs to be like sitting up against a tree. And so that was this shot here. We did a little bit of masking of this tree as we go around. You can see it here a little better. Then it happens really quick, so you don't really notice it. But then we go to all of them running. Then we cut to this shot. Another one of the stories in this series is the woman at the well. So I wanted one of the gals to be drinking water, and so that's what this is here. Had a few different angles that we used there. And then we cut to them running. Again, lots of movement that we wanted. So it was a lot of literally running with the camera, not even a gimbal, just with the camera, and running kind of in the group of them so that we could cut to these different shots. And then this very last one, we did a little bit of masking out that person as they were jumping over to reveal this graphic right here. And then that's how it ends. But yeah, that's a little look at the process. Not so much breaking down the exact edit. I don't think there's too much to say there. But in terms of the whole process, I really like talking about going from brainstorming to that pitch deck to shot lists. We didn't necessarily have a strict script for this one. So you didn't have to worry too much about that. There was a little bit of improvisation that happened. All of the stuff that the student pastor said, we essentially just sat him down. Here's that shot in a parking lot, and we pulled different little excerpts from that to kind of build out that story. We kind of gave him a brief. We showed him the video. It's like, this is the plot to a certain degree, and then kind of just let him roll with it. And I think it ended up flowing really nicely. It felt pretty natural, and that was kind of exactly what we were going for with that. Kind of looks like a podcast almost, but in the middle of the street. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was enlightening to some degree and you learned something. always honored to be able to do this and create in this way. All right, so that's about it. Was the bumper for When People Meet Jesus. There's a lot of projects that I'm excited about coming up in the pipeline. And so hopefully, depending on what happens, I'll just keep making some of these videos, breaking them down, because I like it. It's cool. Peace.